Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
Spring practice is underway for Virginia Tech football, so let's get first reactions to the spring session on episode 477 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. We're recording on Thursday, March 19th, 2026 from the Tech Solutions Studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Today's episode is brought to you by Tyrus Homes. And remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Riley Klaus, and today I'm joined to my left by lead analyst and columnist Chris Coleman. To my right, senior staff writer Andy Bitter. Producing the show behind the scenes, as always, is Mr. Nick Brown. And this is episode 477, but episode 476 was an interview with Virginia Tech legend J.C. Price. Andy, you were part of that. How did that interview go?
It was good, reminiscing about some old times here, talking about his coaching stint. It wasn't in the podcast. We were talking to him afterwards about Phil Amazian. He mentioned, J.C. Price talked a little bit about, when he was here and kind of a knucklehead early on, and then things came together. But he talked about Amazian being just influential in his life in the sense that it was the first time that he ever took anything away from him in terms of his grades weren't up to snuff. And Amazian's like, I'm not going to play you until you get your grades right. And JC was like, that's the first person that's ever done something like that. Kind of kicked me in the pants to get me in the right direction. So afterwards, he's like, if I was putting a staff together, Phil Amazian would be the first coach I hired, and Phil Amazian would be the first coach I would fire too. It's like, yep, that's how it works. You bring him in, he kicks everybody in the butt, they get things going, and then, he's there 2 years and probably wears out his welcome and on your way. And that was Phil Amazian's entire career like that.
Hey, tall girl, want a beer? Dating advice from
that was a good line. I mean, you might have to be a tall football player to be able to pull that line off.
Probably so. But you could try.
Yeah. Who
What's
knows?
stopping you?
Well, if you want that advice and more, make sure to go click on the video up there to catch it. But today we're here to talk about spring practice is in session for Virginia Tech football. You guys were able to attend it today. So my first question is, what does a James Franklin-led practice look like?
I mean, they're fairly similar in structure to the Brent Pry practice because, obviously he came from Penn State. Different coaches have different drills. We saw some different drills from Norval McKenzie with the running back position than I'd seen before.
The running back was refreshing to watch.
It was the most intense of all the individual practices. And Tech only has 5 healthy running backs right now. And McKenzie, there are no breaks during a Norval McKenzie practice during the running back session. So after about 5 minutes in, those guys were sucking wind. They were gassed. And when they got fatigued, they started fumbling all over the place. And when they fumble, the whole group has to do push-ups. So they just get even more gassed.
It just compounds.
Right? Right. So I really enjoyed watching him coach. He really holds his guys to a high standard. I bet for James Franklin is just glad to get back out on a practice field. He hadn't been on a practice field coaching football since last October. He got fired. He got hired. He's put together a coaching staff, redone a roster, shotgun recruiting towards signing day, then the transfer portal, kicking Miami fans out of Merriman Center. He's dealt with so much crap since the last time he actually got to coach football. And all these guys, they get into this because they like coaching football. And he hadn't been able to do that in, 6 months. So I bet he's glad to just get out there and do what he considers his primary job.
Yeah, I think in general, coaches just like spring ball. Think of all the stuff you have to put up with the rest of the year, and it's the recruiting side of things. Now there's an NIL component, and you're talking, salary with guys essentially. The week to week in the season, you're worried about game planning, guys being healthy, and in spring ball, it's just sort of just unfiltered football coaching, and you're just throwing stuff at them all you can in terms of install and kind of setting the tone and what the expectations are. And I think coaches really like that because you can get hands-on with it. A couple people just watching specifically Franklin, kind of watching from a distance, roving around different groups. And, when a big play is made, he is the first one in there. Like he beat, it was either Nick Perry or Anthony Midget, like in to go congratulate Sheldon Robinson when he made a pick along the sideline, and he gets in there. It's like, hell of a job on that play. Like immediately could get there before the position coach did. Cam Sparks got a touchdown in a skeleton drill or an individual play. I can't remember what exactly the drill was. And Franklin, beelined across the field to get in there and congratulate him. So he's in there on good plays and bad. There's also a sort of a late hit behind the play, or it was like supposed to be thud tempo or whatever, and a linebacker hit a running back to the ground a little too aggressively. And Franklin was in there immediately with some choice words for said linebacker. Didn't kick anybody out of practice. We didn't get
kicked into the sideline.
Yeah, we didn't get a middle drill ejection like we've gotten a couple times in the past couple of years. But he got in there and he was forceful with him. He was like, "What are you doing? We're not doing that in this drill." So, watching him do that, watching Brent Pry be a position coach again and be hands-on and not have that roving responsibility, I thought was kind of interesting, because he looked in his element. That looks like what he enjoys doing, is being hands-on and coaching a group like that again. So just again, it was 2 hours, and we're kind of watching different groups at different times. But sometimes it's interesting to see how these guys operate when they're out in the field.
Yeah, everybody has his own coaching style. Franklin looks like a really good balance of hands-on and hands-off. He lets his coach, but he also gets involved at the right times. Like I grew up, and most Virginia Tech fans were raised on Frank Beamer and his coaching style. And I went to so many practices back in the day, and you'd get halfway through the practice and be like, "Where's Beamer?" And oh, there he is up in the tower, just watching, like not involved. Heavily involved during special teams, of course, but everything else, nah. He just watches from the tower, doesn't talk to anybody. I remember going to practice one year, and it was when they were building the indoor facility, and he had a couple big donors over there, and they were just, Beamer's like, this is going to be great right here, and over here we're going to have this. And like he had his back turned to practice for like 30 minutes, like giving donors like a tour of the indoor facility. Like he was like as hands off as it gets during football practice. And you could argue that maybe sometimes Fuente was a little bit too hands on, although he had to be, because I don't know that, at the end his coordinators were up to snuff, but that's another conversation. But Franklin seems to have that. He seems to find that proper balance right in the middle.
And for fans who are kind of wondering, how often are they able to practice during the spring session, and how intense can they really get during this time?
They have 15 practices that they're allowed, and that includes the spring game.
Correct.
And it's just like regular August practice. There's a warm-up period. Like first you're in no pads, shorts and shirts, or sweatpants and shirts. Then you're generally in shells, which is like shoulder pads, and then you go full pads, and then you can tackle to the ground. So I don't know exactly how many full pad tackle to the ground practices they'll have, but I think they'll have at least shoulder pads on in their next practice.
Yeah, and at a certain point they crank up the intensity.
Yeah,
this was a fairly light practice in terms of intensity, and not like speed, but there wasn't a lot of hitting.
There's no hitting
because they weren't in full pads in this one. And the other side of it is you want to keep guys healthy. Like if somebody goes and gets hurt, then they'll get a whole lot of spring ball if they're sitting on the sideline watching. So, and the last thing you want at this time of year is somebody getting seriously injured, 6 months away from the season, whatever it is at this point. So I think they're very careful about that. But at the same time, you want to get a little bit of pads popping in there. I mean, you want to make it feel like football, because I don't think you can just crank that up in August and all of a sudden it's there. You got to kind of get used to it over time and sprinkle it in here every now and then to keep guys fresh.
So in this session, are there any guys individually who really impressed you today?
Keyshawn Brown.
Yeah, I agree.
He's quick.
He's a different level. And, you would expect that. I mean, watching him at Duke, seeing the numbers he put up, and you can tell a noticeable difference. I thought he and Aiden Green were the two best receivers today, and I think everybody else is a step or two behind those two guys. I did, but I thought the two most impressive catches of the day that I saw from the receivers were by Cam Sparks, a redshirt freshman. He's a big guy who looks the part, but he also had two easy drops, right? Kind of what you get in a redshirt freshman. But I definitely see talent there from him. But wide receiver depth is something that's going to have to come along.
Yeah, I think Brown was just, you watch him and you go, man, he's in a different gear than everybody else. I thought Takai Heath looked pretty quick too. interestingly, from those receivers, Luke Stewie got a lot of run. So did Cam Sparks. I think part of that is Snook Peterkin is still transitioning from the basketball team. He was out there, not dressed in a uniform, but he was like going through walkthroughs and stuff like that. Keelan Adams was not a full go. Mm-hmm. He was not doing the different skeleton drills and stuff like that. So they needed some other bodies to step up at receiver. But those are some guys that were interesting to me. But definitely Brown jumped off the page. You looked at him, you go, man, he's fast. Javion Hilson looks quick off the edge. He wasn't necessarily up there with the first team in different things, but when he got into any sort of situation where he was on the field, it's like, okay, you can see the burst from this guy to get off. I thought Luke Reynolds made a nice play over Sherrod Koval for a touchdown. They got up and told him about it. Once he got up, he was right at his face.
And he wouldn't stop talking to him until Koval looked at him and acknowledged him.
When he got up and he was looking down at it.
That was like the most trash talk I've seen at a Tech practice in a long time.
Certainly out of a Tech tight end. Yes. Who was the last Tech tight end that would, Bucky Hodges wasn't really like that. He just did the shmoney dance when he got a touchdown. But I'm trying to think of a sort of a in-your-face type of tight end that they've had here. So that was actually
Dalton Keene was when he played against Trevon Hill.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A little refreshing to see that out there. But some guys made some plays offensively, and I think that was one thing about the offensive session is last year it felt like the defense won a lot of those rounds, those head-to-heads, and the offense didn't just make a lot of plays. And the offense made a ton of plays in this. Touchdowns, contested catches. The defense got the better of them later in a skeleton drill going down the field. But the early session, it was all offense, and it led to some push-ups by the defensive players and coaches afterwards.
Yeah, and it helps having multiple quarterbacks who can throw the ball accurately and hit running receivers in stride. And we saw that today. And, Ethan Grunkmeyer, Bryce Baker, Troy Hune. Somebody at Tech told me they think Hune will be the third quarterback.
Hune is a lot taller than I thought he was.
He's tall. He is filled out, and he can sling it. He can hit guys in stride. And all three of those guys I saw today hit moving receivers in stride, where their momentum was carrying them down the field, and they got big plays out of it. So Tech didn't have any quarterbacks who could do that last year. And now they've got three of them. I mean, it's just a totally different type of quarterback. And now none of those guys are going to rush for 700 yards and run over linebackers in an option game. But
run over linebackers, no. Bryce Baker moved pretty well.
Moved pretty well.
I thought Grunkmeyer moved better than I thought, because you look at his stats last year to go, man, he's a statue back there. If these are his rushing yards, like, no, I think he moves better than I thought.
Yeah, he can scramble around. He's not going to run a bunch of option or anything like that. Baker was interesting. Baker and Hune both had braces on their left knee. Hune got banged up last year in high school, so wasn't surprised by that. Baker was like the only quarterback that UNC didn't try last year. They were so bad, and I wonder if it was because he was carrying some kind of injury to his knee. But he can spin it, and he looks like a good athlete.
They could have used any help they could get at quarterback last year. So it would be surprising if they chose not to play him for any other reason.
Agreed.
Yeah, and how were the reps split up amongst these guys today?
I mean, it was when they would get into a competitive period, it's Grunkmeyer first and Baker second, and then sort of some sort of mix of the guys after that. But all of them got reps. I mean, true to Franklin's word to lead off spring balls, like they're rotating a lot of guys. They're getting reps on both ends of the field to kind of double it up in that whole situation. I think it's obvious who the top two guys are, but everybody's going to get their chance this spring.
Yep. And let's go to what's next to the quarterback position. You mentioned earlier, running backs are depleted health-wise a little bit right now, but how have they managed today?
They were worn out after about 5 minutes in that drill, because their drills are nonstop. I love McKenzie. I love how he coaches. He's going to get the best out of those players, and they're probably going to hate him during practices, but by the end of the season, they'll appreciate him. I thought Overton has put on good size. Nick, your heights and weights are from last season, man. Anyway, okay, he's 205 now. And
Chris is very eager to tell people that Overton is 205.
It's when you put on that much weight, it's not just muscle mass. You're gonna eat more and add some fat to it. But he looks good out there, and his feet look quick. Bill Davis is 230.
No longer a cheeseburger away from 250, as Franklin said.
Unless you got one of those huge Sharky's cheeseburgers that's like challenge to eat.
I'll say this about Bill Davis. He is a load out there. I mean, he's all of that weight that he's out there, but he runs violently and aggressively. Even when he was going through those drills, you could tell. I'm not a football player, but I'm looking at him going, man, that would just be a real pain to tackle.
It's always the short guys.
To have to get in front of that type of guy, maybe a little Terrion Stewart-esque to it.
Same build as like
he seems
him
like
and
more of a
Tootin,
load than
but
even
he's bigger than Tootin.
Stewart was. So I think it'll be interesting at running back because you're not going to have Marcellus Hawkins for most of the spring. He was out there going through like mental reps, especially during install, just sort of shadowing the play and following where he's supposed to go. And Messiah Mickens is out as well. So 3 scholarship running backs right now. We'll see how they last through the spring, but they're going to get their share of reps, that's for sure.
I'm guessing there will be a little more precautionary with Hawkins. I don't think it's like a serious injury. He's one of those guys like, he already knows how to play football. And he's a senior. He showed that last year.
And you don't
risk it.
Don't take any tread off the tires of your lead running back. Save all that for the season.
Exactly right. And those other guys, they've got to get a scouting report on Bill Davis at this level. And Tyler Mason is trying to get his chance to play. And Overton is still very young and needs developing. So the reps are important for those guys. They're not necessarily important for Marcellus Hawkins at this stage in his career. They're not as important. They're important, but not as important.
And James Franklin this week talked about the importance of the offensive line and then just figuring out who are the best players in that next group of them. What is the depth looking like up front?
The starting lineup from left to right was Aiden Lynch, Lath Gannum, Kyle Altuner, Johnny Garrett, and Montavious Cunningham. And
all guys that were here last year.
Right. So I think each individual position coach probably like sets his own depth chart going into it. So I think that's just Matt Moore saying, okay, I'm going to roll with the guys I know, and it's up to all the newcomers to prove it.
The interesting thing is they've got Garrett on the inside and
Agreed.
Cunningham at tackle, whereas that it was the opposite before. And Cunningham's an interesting one for me because they signed him. This is now his 3rd year here.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago when they signed him, they were very excited about him. And athletically, he does things that just other players on the roster didn't do, and just haven't seen it. That first year, he couldn't get on the field, really. And last year, he was hurt.
Keeps getting hurt
the entire time. So now he's back. It seems like, good off-season reports. You'd see him pop up in the off-season, the winter drills. Like, the coaches would highlight a single player, something like that. It seems like Hog, Montavious Cunningham, his nickname there, was getting highlighted quite a bit. So to put him out there at right tackle, which is interesting because Garrett has been a tackle in the past, maybe speaks to his development and that they feel good about him there.
And they've tried to play him at guard in the past. He actually played right tackle at Georgia State.
Yeah.
So that he has more experience at that position than any other. So I think they're just experimenting to see what the right mix is on the right side. To me, Garrett doesn't seem like he's bulky enough to play inside at guard, but he's also struggled as a pass blocker on the outside. We'll see what that looks like when Logan Howland is healthy, which won't be this spring, be in August. And Justin Terry is banged up right now, too, and he was in the 2 deep at offensive tackle at Ohio State. So he's not in the 2 deep right now for the Hokies because he's banged up, wouldn't get any reps today. He'll be in there at some point, and he could play tackle or
even
guard.
Brody Meadows is sort of working his way back. He was off on the side earlier on working on stuff. So they'll have more of a full complement of linemen in the future, but this is a starting point at least.
And we've got the backup offensive line as well, and this is how it lined up from left to right. Lucas Austin, Gavin Crawford, Tommy Ricard, Brody Meadows, Justin Bell. Bell is one big human being. At
a lot of those guys are big human beings. Like who was it standing off to the side? It might have been one of the transfer tackles.
Howland.
Yeah. Howland or maybe another guy. I can't remember. They're large humans.
Right.
Purgatory, big dude.
Tyrell Simpson, big dude. Now, Tyrell Simpson, even early in practice, was really struggling, huffing and puffing, running from one drill to the other. So he's got to drop a little bit of weight and work on his conditioning, and that'll probably take him about a year. But I think he's got good feet for a guy his size, and I like his ceiling.
And you mentioned a whole lot of familiar names in that group. Is there any sense of kind of relying on the returners in the building, or is it just a brand new group and they're merging together?
I mean, I think it's natural for coaches at the beginning of spring practice to go with the guys that they know amongst their starting group. Things will change somewhat when the pads get on and those guys start hitting and they actually have to block guys that are wearing pads and trying to tackle a running back and things like that. And, I think Johnny Garrett at guard is a little bit of an experiment right now. Maybe that sticks. Maybe it doesn't. And in spring ball, you can afford to do stuff like that.
Well, Remack played every position but the one he sort of ended up primarily at last year.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he played everywhere last season.
Except center. Everything except center. Yep.
Part of that is just, you ask Matt Moore about it. It's like, why is he going to work at left guard? It's like, I know what he can do at left guard. I don't know what he can do with those other spots. So I'm sure that it's the same approach with some of the stuff. Perhaps they have an idea of Johnny Garrett at tackle. What can he do at guard? Is that a better fit for him? Possibly. Is that a better fit for the line when you're looking for what you need from the guys that are out there?
Yep.
Well, we'll have some more takeaways from this practice, but first let's hear from our sponsor, Tyrus Homes.
Are you ready for a custom home tailored to your distinctive lifestyle? At Tyrus Homes, a leading custom home builder in the New River Valley, we pride ourselves on crafting exceptional residences that our clients love to call home. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a growing family in search for more room, an active adult seeking a relaxing retreat, or looking for a higher-end custom home that offers luxury and sophistication, we have the perfect solution for you. Discover how you can bring your dream home to life at TyrusHomes.com. That's TYRIS Homes.com.
All right, now let's focus in on the defensive side of the ball for a little bit. And a big piece is with Brent Pry coming back. What were the dynamics like with him in terms of, was he coaching everybody or really sticking with the linebackers?
His linebackers, yeah. Which you would think that's his position. Mm-hmm. That's what he's going to coach. He'll step back and watch everybody, of course, in scrimmages. The thing about, Tech practices these days, and everybody's practices these days, is there's a camera filming every single positional drill, right? So Brent Pry can go back and look at the individual drills for every single player at every single position if he wants to after practice. So there's not this great need for him to wander around. He can just focus in on his position.
This is a competitive drill.
Yes, it is.
They would announce that before a certain drill. This is a competitive drill. It's like, all right, amp it up a little bit here, a little bit of something extra on it.
Well, a group that right now needs to be figured out in terms of who's going to play is the edge spot. Who's really sticking out among the defensive ends in that group?
The defensive ends today with the first group was Asen Stevens and Jason Abbey. Again, the two returning guys, which is normal. Abbey was really good against the run last year. Neither one of those guys has brought much from a pass rushing standpoint. We'll see with Coach Chaos. The number 2 defensive ends were Brett Clatterbaugh, who we thought was moving to linebacker, but apparently not.
Right.
And Cortez Harris, who's a transfer from Penn State, and Javion Hilson's a guy who was running with the third group, and I think by the end of it, he's going to be on the field a lot. Virginia Tech, because I think he's their most natural pass rusher.
Yeah, Derek Dandy was in there a little bit as well. I think that's a spot that among the biggest question marks I have on this defense, and not just terms of do they have enough guys there? I think there's tons of options, but it's who's going to emerge.
Yeah,
and I don't know necessarily. I don't think there's an APR among the group.
Not yet. Not this year.
I don't even know if there's a Ben Bell in terms of a guy that you go, this is just a pass rusher that you're going to get, pressure, maybe a few late hit penalties on the quarterback in these games. We'll see. I think Hilson has the highest ceiling of that group, but he's very inexperienced right now. And, that's, probably why he's where he is or was working where he was today. In terms of what we were perceiving to be the depth chart. But I think there are a lot of options there. There's a lot that has to be sorted out because, first team, Asen Stevens, Jason Abbey, they've played. They haven't played a ton. They haven't made a ton of impact, I think, on games here and there. But it's not like they're a full season starter or 2 season starters. I think a lot is up for grabs in that group.
A defensive tackle, another proven commodity in Kamari Copeland, but then behind him, some guys maybe trying to make that leap.
When I saw Copeland's like the one guy amongst the defensive line who is going to start. The other 3 starting spots are up for grabs. Laws was in there with one some, and I think Elijah Fall was too. Christian Evans was getting some reps with the number 2 defense. You look a little deeper than that. I really like Adarica, I think is how you pronounce it, the transfer from Penn State. Mensa was running with the 3s, the transfer from Ohio State. I really like a lot of those young defensive tackles. I think Adarica and T-Ron are going to be a really good combo down the stretch. And like Emmett Laws is only a redshirt sophomore, so I think those guys are going to be able to play together for a long time. But a couple of those guys, were still really young. But I feel better about the production right now, like the proven production from the defensive tackles than I do from the defensive ends.
Yeah, Handchuck was another guy in there. We think they're wearing.
Pretty sure it was Handchuck.
They're wearing like orange jerseys, but the numbers don't line up
because
to what they
he's
were.
still not a 100%.
Yeah. But big white injured defensive tackle.
Pretty sure that was him. Yeah.
That's Handchuck's profile.
Yes.
That's what he's been since he's been here the entire time. Copeland. When you have a guy like Copeland, it's going to instantly put you ahead of the other spots in terms of feeling comfort about that position. And Copeland and player X, whoever you put next to him, I think you're going to feel pretty comfortable about that pairing that you have in the field.
Yep.
Is it Fall or Laws right now that's the number 2 guy? I don't know. But I think there's going to be some rotation.
I'm guessing
they rotate the tackles all the time.
Yeah, I'm guessing
fresh.
the snaps would be about exactly even if they played a game tomorrow.
I think the key is finding 4 or 5 of those guys that you can rotate and stay healthy throughout the season.
Agreed.
Let's go one level back to the linebackers, which Brent Pry is overseeing. How is he working with that group?
Yeah, I thought Caleb Spencer was with the starters. Noah Chambers was with the starters at the third linebacker spot. Sometimes it was Jones, the West Virginia transfer. Sometimes it was Keon Wiley for the Penn State transfer. Balance and Santiago were in the 2 deep. And sometimes they would take off the star linebacker, which I believe was Jones, and bring in a nickel. Sometimes, and that nickel was generally Murray. Sometimes it was Wosley, the transfer from Penn State. So, how much are they going to play the nickel? I think that's going to depend on how good they feel about their third linebacker. Some of it's going to be matchup related, but really what you want to do is get your best 11 players on the field. I think right now, I thought this offseason that Virginia Tech has 5 cornerbacks who could end up starting. They've got 5 cornerbacks who are good enough to start. And I don't, considering I didn't even know who the star linebacker was going to be, I would probably lean a little bit more towards a nickel package this year, just based if you want to get your best 11 on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all dependent on what kind of offense you're facing. If you're facing 12 personnel the whole time of the game, you're going to want that linebacker, that extra beef in there. So just gives you some options to go one way or the other. I think I'll point out that Noah Chambers just physically is a specimen. Like, you look at him and go, man, that guy just looks like a middle linebacker there. Hard to believe he's still in his first year of college.
Correct.
Right? This is second semester of his first year of college. Man, if the development comes along with the physical skills that he has, I think they got a dude at linebacker.
Right.
We'll see how it progresses this spring, but you're just impressive physically to see him out there. And if you have a guy like that in the middle of your defense, I feel like that's a pretty good start.
And Gabe Williams got in there some too, and I couldn't tell if he was playing Will or Star, assuming that's the names of the positions. I assume it is. I really don't know. That's going to be an interesting one. He broke that leg late in the 2024 season, and that kind of wasted his red shirt year, and then got on the field for special teams a little bit last year. He's up to 235 now, so he's really filled out. And now it's about just getting reps, getting experience, and figuring out what his best spot is.
Let's go to the secondary. You talk about getting your best 11 out there, and it feels like there's a lot of potential starters in this spot. So how did they pair players together, or are they mix and matching so far in the practice?
I think they're still probably experimenting and doing some mixing and matching. It wouldn't surprise me if Murray stayed at nickel. He was a guy they mentioned for nickel last year, and then he didn't play it because he turned out to be their top outside corner.
Everybody else was hurt on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so you said you think five. You go and thinking 5 corners could start. Who are the 5?
I could. All right. So Murray, Chadwick, White, Thomas Williams, and Wosley.
Would you have Josh Clark in that?
You could potentially have. So
I think he would.
6. Yeah,
I did a whole podcast this morning where I confused JoJo Krim and Josh Clark, so I feel bad about that.
Yeah,
but Josh Clark missed last year.
Clark might have started last year.
That's the thing is I thought Clark was going to have a role
right
last year, and he tore his ACL in the spring and missed the entire season, and that really hurt depth.
Yeah.
I think so. I think he's a promising player. Thomas Williams obviously started the whole bunch last year, IBM. played very well. But I think the transfers that they brought in, Jacquez White,
He looked good today.
made some nice plays. There's a deep ball where he had a PBU where he batted away, and he did it very casually. Like it was just like in stride, and he hit it. I think he's gonna. I definitely think he's gonna be a starter. It seemed like White and Chadwick were the top guys that they had out there today with IBM in the nickel.
Yeah, their cornerback depth is so nice right now. Like I think Knowledge Harrell's a pretty good player, but he's going to have to beat out at least two guys to have a spot in the 2 deep. Right?
Did he end up burning the shirt last year?
I think he did. I think on special teams he burned it.
Potentially redshirt this year.
I would do
if you
it.
have enough guys.
Absolutely. And
Of course, you would do it. You're Mr.
I would do
Redshirt.
red shirt, literally red shirt everybody. But you can get away with that these days because you can just tell the guy, look, we're still going to pay you. And if you red shirt, you can maximize your 5-year earnings in college, right? And it's a much easier argument to make these days for the guys that maybe don't want to hear it. And I'm telling you, Mari Polydor would play as a true freshman in a normal year for Virginia
Yeah, he had
Tech.
a little bit of run today.
He dropped an interception where he tracked the ball over the middle and made a great play on it, but didn't come away with the catch. But he's one of those DC kids. Maryland DC kids played at a private school against a really high level of competition, and I think he's ready for this level of football. It's just there's so many guys ahead of him with experience that he'll most likely end up redshirting, but I think he's got a very good future.
Well, let's touch on special teams for a moment, specifically in the return game. Are there?
Well,
any
we got hit
guys
safeties too.
Yeah.
I feel like the safeties were more paired than the cornerbacks were because it was Flowers and Reddish. First team, Robinson and Bass with the second team. And I'll be honest, that's a pretty solid 4 guys there.
And then you got Brennan Johnson, who played a lot last year.
Right. Yeah. And so if they go into the season, that's what the group is, that top 4.
Right.
I'd feel pretty good about that.
And you've got Chadwick at corner, who has some experience lining up as like a safety type 2 in certain formations. So you've got plenty of versatility there.
But back to punt returns. I'm sorry, I cut you off on that.
I think Sheldon Robinson had a pick today. And
that's the one where I described at
Yes.
the top of my story. Franklin comes over. He's like, hell of a job.
Exactly. I'm very high on him as a player. It would not shock me if he ended up like winning a starting job at some point.
So to answer your punt return question, they had 3 guys back. There was Brown, Takai Heath, Keyshawn Brown, Takai Heath, and Tyseer Denmark. I think between Heath and Brown, you probably have the starter there. One of those 2 guys. Based on what I saw out of Brown today, I would want him on the field in any capacity that you could have, offensively or special teams. He just seemed to have that it factor.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who I think he can steal you a touchdown at any point. And, you just never know, like a big punt return or 2 at various points throughout the season. That's good. That could be the difference in a game or 2, right? And he would be my guy there. He wouldn't be my guy against VMI because I don't want him getting hurt on a punt return against somebody like VMI. But when you're playing a competitive football game, then he's your guy as a punt returner. I think if somebody can beat him out, feel free. But I think he's the guy you want back out there if you can do it.
Were there any other standout moments or drills that we haven't talked about so far that just had a lot of momentum in the practice?
Jeff Exner had a long touchdown. I think it might have been like they caught up and they weren't tackling. So the guy kind of like tapped him. I think it would have been down in a real game, but he kept running to the end zone. So I'll give him credit for a touchdown on that one. I think it was Chadwick had a nice pick near the end.
Was that Chadwick? I missed that one.
I wrote it down as Chadwick.
Okay.
So hopefully I got the number right. It was like a diving pick, but it looked like Flowers like deflect. It was a throw into tight coverage, and like Flowers kind of tipped it. And then Chadwick. Okay. I think it was Chadwick or Wosley potentially made the pick. But that was a nice play, turnover force there. That always gets a big rise out of the players on the sideline when they get a turnover like that.
Yep.
So what is the biggest change in this practice as opposed to previous ones you've been open
Well,
to?
it's hard to say because we've never watched a whole practice before. We got to watch one whole scrimmage early in Pry's tenure, like 2023. But I don't think I've watched. I'm trying to remember the last time we were allowed to watch an entire 2-hour practice. I used to go to a bunch of them, like when I was in school working for VTTV, because all you had to do was be like, "Hey, I'm coming to practice today," and they're like, "Okay, come on." And it's a big difference through the years, right? So it's hard to compare because we've just never been able to watch one for all the way through.
Here's the thing: football practice is football practice. They're not going to differ too much. Like there might be a tempo. You go through the periods a little bit quicker, or exactly how they structure the different periods. I'll say this much: the musical list was a lot different.
It was very James
under
Franklin.
Franklin was very. I mean, he's like a professed '90s R&B rap guy, and sure enough, in the skeleton drills, the competitive drills that they were doing with skeletons, I wrote down all the songs. First of all, they started Jump Around. It's like, okay, this is sort of a Wisconsin thing. The song Jump Around, House by Pain, OPP by Naughty by Nature. The next episode, Dr. Dre, Hypnotized, Notorious B.I.G. I don't know. Have you seen the? There's like a clip going around of like an introduction at the Big East tournament where it's just like the beat to Hypnotize in Madison Square Garden, and awesome. Like they're doing the pinned introductions. I'm like, this is like great. Basketball heaven there. This is a great thing here. Get Money by Junior Mafia, It Wasn't Me by Shaggy, Run and Dying to Live by Tupac, Jump by Criss Cross, and Welcome Back by Mace.
I appreciated the Criss Cross. I didn't see that coming.
I only had to Kazam a couple of those. And I'm pretty well versed in 90s.
I had a Criss Cross cassette. And like circa
Did you used to wear your pants backwards?
I'd never tried that. Okay. I don't think that'd be a great look for me.
It doesn't seem practical,
probably
if I'm being honest. No. It's like, well, it's time to use the bathroom. This was a bad decision. Yeah, bad decision. But like some of those songs, first of all, Jump Around, great song. Next episode, great song. Hypnotize. Yeah, it's a pretty good set list there. Very different from just like you were there with Pride before, like an Allman Brothers song comes on. It's like, I think I know who is behind this one.
Well, from the very brief amount that we've seen so far, what is a question you think they'll need to answer as we continue to go further in the offseason?
What does their starting offensive line end up looking like? Who are their starting defensive ends? How much depth do they have at linebacker? I think those would be the main questions I have.
Yeah, it's narrowing down a depth chart. I think you start very broadly at the start of spring. You got to give everybody a chance to show what they can do. And even by the end of spring, I don't think you close the door on people. You maybe have a better idea of where you go into the summer, and then definitely narrow it down once you get into August. But just get a sense of capabilities. And okay, is this, Pry used to talk about it all the time, like know where your liabilities are so you can sort of attack those in the offseason and maybe mitigate those a bit. I think that's the point of spring, is a lot of this is introducing these players to the coaches because they haven't seen them on the field before. It's one thing to scout them on film, but it's another thing to coach them hands-on when you get out there. And, sometimes players surprise you when you get on the field and you're actually working with them like that.
Yeah, I agree. And there's no big hurry to start paring things down now. You want to get to August, get through your first week of practice. You get through your first scrimmage, and then you start paring things down, I think.
And James Franklin has talked so much about establishing what he has as a culture and everything. What do you think he's going to continue to kind of evolve and establish as a kind of community or as an entirety over the next few months?
Culture starts in the offseason in the weight room. And from what I can tell, the culture is pretty darn established so far. I mean, Overton looks like a different running back. There were some good weight gains across the board. Caleb Spencer was 221 last year, and I think he was really good against the run as a Mike linebacker, considering his size. But now he's up around 230 and looks more of the part. And that's where it starts. It looks more and more like a football team. You got more guys on this team that you'd be like, yeah, I'm okay with that guy being the first guy off the bus, right? I think there's more guys like that here. So I think the culture is fine. I think it helps when you bring a number of guys with you who already know your culture because they've already played with you. And I think that certainly helps.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we get a little buzzwordy when it comes to like culture and building character and all this stuff. It's like, are you good at football?
Yeah.
And last year's team, what did we hear before the season the entire time? It's like, this is as close of a team as we've ever had together. We went to the lake. We had bonding sessions out there.
All coaches say that.
All this stuff. And, we did stuff. We fast forwarded that whole process and going out to eat all the time and getting to know each other. And then they go out and they go 3-9.
I feel like some comedian needs to do some sort of a skit, like this video skit of you're doing interviews with the coach, and the coach is like, well, you know what? I think we're really going to suck this year, guys. Right. None of these guys are fits. I just see a bunch of lazy players. Well, we'll probably beat VMI, but probably going to lose to every other game we play, right? I think a good comedian could make a really good sketch.
But it's like they will talk so much about culture. I'm not diminishing that.
Right.
Like it needs to be something that you build. But also, I need an accurate pass on third down.
Yeah.
I need a
absolutely.
pass rush, a guy who doesn't get a penalty hitting the quarterback late
Right.
when you get a stop on the field. Like these are the differences between
You need a
winning and losing.
coordinator who understands what his quarterback can and can't do.
Right.
But I mean, assuming your culture is great, I mean, it needs to be great. But to actually get out there, like great culture will get you to 6-6 probably, and each progressive win off of that is gonna come down to skill level.
It's funny how winning teams always have great culture.
Right.
Like, of course, winning is a sell for everything. Like, you go out there and then this is great. Times are great when you're winning, but when you're losing.
Did the Florida teams have great culture when like Percy Harvin was there, right?
Percy Harvin.
I think Tebow probably
Aaron
held it all
Hernandez.
together, barely. But yeah.
I mean, the winning glossed over whatever culture problems existed there. So again, I think it's just a buzzword coaches throw out there a lot. I'm not diminishing it completely, but show me some good football, some good disciplined football.
Right.
I would take that over, big bonding and everybody's one big happy family out there.
Well, the Hokies will be in action for the public on Saturday, April 18th at 3 p.m. And so as we round out our thoughts here, my last question is, based on what you saw today, is there any part of the team you're excited to see develop and get excited for into that spring game over the next month?
Some of this is so much about, you always feel like what you were lacking before is what you need the most now, right? So when I watched all those quarterbacks throw today, and I think those three quarterbacks I named earlier, Gronk and Baker and Hune, all throw the ball better than anybody Tech had last year. And I don't even think it's even close. It doesn't mean that like Hune could get in there as a true freshman and complete 70% of his passes or anything like that. But as far as natural passing skills go, this is a major, major, major upgrade. But again, none of these guys are going to go out there and rush for 800 yards and run over linebackers, so there's always give and take to it. But I think the Tech passing game can be more advanced starting this year, and you'll see some of that out there on the field.
Yeah, I'm curious to see those individuals we mentioned too. I mean, Keyshawn Brown, again, like I'm excited to see him again at practice.
Yeah.
Like again, he was just so electric out there. Luke Reynolds, just you seeing that taste of that touchdown and then standing over the guy. It's just like, okay, this is something different here. I'm curious to see Aiden Green in a capable passing attack. He hasn't really had that since he's been here. And shoot, he's a senior now. Yeah. Like, it's so weird to think that he's a senior.
Oh, if only they
at this point. Yeah, he just hasn't had an offense that has gotten him the ball. So I think there's some interesting pieces in that. And I think spring games are conducive to that because it ends up trending a little bit more towards passing than running when you're a spring game. I think there are less injuries like that if you're chucking the ball around instead of trying to, run inside run through the whole entire game where, somebody gets rolled up on or a knee gets hit from the sideways or something like that. So it'll be interesting to watch this passing game as it develops this spring.
We'll have all the coverage for you here at Tech Sideline throughout the offseason. It's been a busy week of content for us, but what can we expect coming up on TechSideline.com?
Andy just put an article out about observations, quite a bit of which you just heard in this podcast.
Yeah, it was sort of a article form of this podcast, but we'll have interviews next Tuesday. I still have a bunch of coach stories that I can trot out here, which you might sprinkle in throughout the spring because I think we get interviews once a week. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to get a lot of stuff on that Tuesday to carry through the week so I can intersperse some coaching material as well.
And I'm doing my normal Q&A tomorrow. David's in Austin for the women's tournament, probably cracking his first beer right about now.
Rough assignment.
It's tough work. Really feel terrible for him.
Yeah, so women's basketball in the tournament, Tech wrestling as well, competing at the moment. Nick, as we go over to you, anything on the audio video side that we should expect coming up?
Well, this week was very, very busy. We've had, is this our third podcast this week? Because we had
hoops.
We had
this
basketball.
Is fourth. This is fourth.
Fourth. Yeah.
I've done 3 of them. So
we did a basketball video.
I'm
on
all
Monday.
talked out.
We had we had a softball podcast. Of course, we had JC Price, which was phenomenal. Tomorrow, the Friday Q&A, talking with Teal. Just whirlwind of videos. But it's the off season, and the fact that we've gotten 6 videos is fantastic. I'm fired up. Anytime I can say that we did 6 videos in 1 week and there's not even a football game on Saturday, I'm fired up, man.
So we've got it all for you. Make sure to check out all those videos on the Tech Sideline YouTube channel if you need some time to catch up on all the podcasts we have done this week. But thank you for watching this one, episode 477 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and refer the show to a friend if you haven't already. But for Chris Coleman, Andy Bitter, and Nick Brown behind the scenes, I'm Riley Klaus saying so long for now.